Hi, and welcome finally to our 2021 Highlights podcast episode. We know we're a little late, and by the time we release this, probably going to be like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks into 2022. But we're in a pandemic, people, so don't come for us. We didn't just want to write off this episode because we think we've got a lot we want to cover in this next hour or so. So get comfy, get a drink, and let's make a toast to 2021 in the only way white noise knows how, by obsessing over things that stopped us from spiraling in the last year. So cheers. So something I realized while I was getting ready for this episode is that 2021 was the first full year for white noise, because in 2020, yeah, we didn't start till August, whereas this year we've had like content every month, in quotation marks, like nearly every month.
I mean, this was the first year that we had the holidays earlier in the year. I mean, we did our St. Patrick's Day mini-sode, we did Valentine's and stuff like that. We got to do an anniversary episode, you know, like it felt good to not just have like the winter months. I know, like you mentioned, like this is a little bit late, but we don't know how to do anything any other way. Like when we launched this podcast, it was like coming tomorrow. I know it's considered like illegal to put out yearly highlights more than a week after New Year's, but I mean, I'd rather sit on it and stew and, you know, go through my list and figure out what truly was like the cream of the crop for me. And as we did last year, both of us on our list, we have not just things that were released in the year, but also things we enjoyed throughout the year that, you know, came out previously. Did you want to start with anything in particular?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think another reason why we were really reluctant to let this particular one go is because we realized how different our 2021 highlights was going to be from 2020, because we talked about it a lot in the 2020 episode. But like that year was all about, for us, and I'm sure a lot of people, but like for us specifically, it was like about nostalgia and revisiting things, and also just having this like no concept of time. There was like no moving forward, there was no new releases of any kind of media. So, and we didn't know how long this thing was going to go on for. So everybody felt really suspended in time. Whereas I feel like 2020 was, it should have been a lot better because things felt like they were moving forward, but instead everything felt like it was moving forward at such a fast pace that nobody knew what to do.
This year was a bit weirder, I think. I think a lot of people said the same thing, where you'd think 2020 was the weirder year, but for some reason it just did not fall
in a weird way, 2020 like made more sense because it was like, you know, we're in a pandemic, everybody's in their homes, there's only so much you can do, whereas everyone knows, especially if you're in the UK, that this year's been so uncertain for so many different reasons that just literally nobody knew what to do with themselves. It was like, okay, do I make it another creative year, or do I spend another year getting the relaxation that I can never get normally? Like, how do I balance it? It seemed even more difficult than 2020 was.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you made such a good point when you say 2020 went a lot faster, because you know, we were all just like getting by every single day and they were kind of flying by. I don't know about you, like, yes, lockdown felt slow at the time, but after a few months of it, like, holy shit, that actually kind of flew by.
Oh, see, actually, I meant the opposite. Like for me, 2020 felt like it stretched for a long time because I had no idea. I mean, I think a lot of the way we felt about the years is obviously personally influenced. And like for me, I was meant to be moving in 2020, which thankfully I was able to do, but I had no idea if I was going to be able to do it, when, where I was going to be living, how I was going to pay for it, if I was going to have a job. So like, and because it felt like it was never going to happen, for me personally, 2020 was like really long, whereas 2021, I moved twice. I changed jobs again. So like, it moved quite fast, and like it was almost kind of reflected in the way I consume media as well, because it's just like it felt like all of a sudden with like new releases and things like that, like just everything was coming at me all at once, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
I think another thing as well is, don't get me wrong, TikTok was huge during the first lockdown. I mean, it became a thing like before that, but I would say this year it truly went nuts. Like this was the year like every celebrity got a TikTok account, and because TikTok got so big, lots of old media was kind of looked at again and brought back to attention. So we said in our video last year, we were like watching things like New Girl and going back to old comforts, but I think that happened on an even grander scale this year. So with the rise of book talk, it already existed, but it blew up in scale. Everyone at one point was reading Dune, because one, the film was coming out, and two, it was something old to look back on and read. And I just felt like everyone was going back to a lot of old stuff.
I got so excited about that because this was probably my first proper year on social media, which I know sounds really stupid, but like, I wasn't even allowed to have Facebook till I was about 16. And then because of that, I didn't join the rest of the social media world until I was like nearly in my 20s anyway. So being in lockdown, and all you literally had was like your phone or your computer, is when I started to kind of dip my toe in. But then this year, when I saw stuff that I felt like related to me a bit more, like you said, like BookTok and stuff like that, it was like a bit more mass consuming. And I also feel like the beginning of my 2021, as it just works when everything's linear, but felt a lot like 2020 for a long time. Like I was still very much in the same place. Like I was consuming more than creating, which there's nothing wrong with that, but like I was really missing my creative side. But stuff like that like really helped me because it was like a weirdly nice in between, if that makes sense.
See, I think it's fascinating that you say you felt like the year 2021 went faster for you, but also felt like 2020 for a while, because I feel like the reason this year went slow is because of that reason. So contrasting, I mean, as in, oh my God, the winter lockdown in the UK, it just, like you say, it felt like 2020 for ages, didn't it? It felt like an extension of that year. And I don't think I consumed anything new in that portion of the year. I'd say it was in the latter half of the year. There was a lot of like, oh shit, like, let's get this going. Like, almost when it's funny because we were unleashed outside, lockdown lifted in the UK, but weirdly, I was like consuming a lot of things. That sounds counterintuitive, but a lot of things were released in the later half of the year, which just like went massively viral. And this is where I think I'm just gonna like, we'll go into more contextual bits here and there throughout this episode, but the first thing I want to bring up is just unavoidable, and we both really enjoyed it, is Squid Game. That was a huge highlight for me this year.
See, do you know, this is what I mean, that like I forget so much stuff, and I've just realized we're going to say this year a lot because we're still in like 2021 mindset. But if we
we say this year, we mean 2021.
We mean 2021. But like I wonder, because like I said, I'm getting it confused between when stuff came out. I wonder if that's why to me 2021 felt like it went by so fast, because I felt like I was in 2020 for so long.
Yeah, maybe.
But like even Squid Game, like it was in that it came out in that weird in between for me, where like I felt like I was finally starting to enter into 2021. And it's actually, now that you bring it up, the first new release I may have consumed.
I know, stop. It took me so long through the year to finally see something new.
Like I watched a lot of stuff that was new to me, but it had been out for a while, whereas this was probably the new thing. And then not only was it the new thing, it was the new super hot thing that then everybody was talking about. And whether you loved it or hate it, I think it actually really helped to bring me into this new year.
Yes, I completely agree. I think what's really interesting, you can like look at different pieces of media as a benchmark. So you'd be like 2016, Stranger Things season 1. Like there are just pieces of media which are tied to certain years, like 1982, E.T., The Thing, think like that. I think Squid Game is going to be a big way that people, refer back to 2021. Like, oh, what year did Squid Game come out? It was that year. They'll tie it to like memories in their lives. Like forever now, when I think about the year that I finally moved away from my home area, I'm like, oh, what year did that come out? What year did Squid Game come out? And I can see that happening for so many people.
It makes sense though. And I think this is why, whether they were good or bad, on a really weird level that I guess we might not have noticed before, like how important new releases were, because like they really are markers of time passing. And then without them, it just felt like no time was passing in 2020. And then all of a sudden you had a lot happening all at once.
Yes. I mean, if we just take like a really quick look at it, we'll come back to like actual details about the things we liked, but just on my list just here, in the latter half of the year, we got You season 3, we got Squid Game, we got Dune, we got Passing by Rebecca Hall. It's just insane how packed the latter half of the year was compared to the first, which I mean is obvious considering COVID. But the impact was insane, because it felt like you're playing catch up all the time and getting FOMO if you hadn't seen it, because social media was just filled, like we said, with people entertaining themselves with old things. And you're like, I don't feel any need to, like consume that, to all of a sudden be like, oh my God, new Wes Anderson. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, that. And it was just a bit like overwhelming. Like I never really caught up, honestly.
all this I was just gonna say, I feel like there is just no winning, and I'm sure so many people felt this way, but like subjectively, now that we think about it, like 2020 should have been the year that a lot of people took time off for themselves and like
Yeah.
family and friends if you were able to be with them. And then 2021 should have been the year that we started to push ourselves back into things. But instead, what ended up happening, and I mean, this is definitely the case for me, is that 2020, I tried to relax and not really do anything, but then I felt guilty because I wasn't doing anything. And then in 2021 it was flipped, and it was like, oh, I really just want a little bit more time for myself, but then at the same time I feel like so much time has already passed. I need to start doing stuff now. And I mean, to anybody who's watching this episode on our YouTube channel, you can see in the background the nice 25 there. I did turn a quarter of a century old in 2021. I know it had mixed reviews, but stuff like Tick Tick Boom really stuck with me because I feel like I've always been going through an existential crisis, but that film didn't help. And then combined with the feelings of 2020 and 2021, there was just so much going on in my head that I just didn't know how to quiet.
Yeah.
And then like that, when that film in particular, when I watched it, like didn't help me. Like I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she wasn't really enjoying it, so she actually went to bed, and then I was like, why did you leave me here alone with this film and my thoughts, because now I don't know what to do.
I think I have to completely agree with you. I spent so much of 2020 being like, no, I will carry on with my life, and then of course this year reached a point of burnout with that. You know, like if anyone say follows myself on social media, they might have seen I took an unintentional sabbatical from most career driven things other than the podcast, and that wasn't, like I say, it was unintentional. It just slipped into it, and it was around when I started actually consuming things again, because like you say, we got burnout. Like I couldn't create anything. I just wanted to like consume new things again. And that in itself was exhausting. So it was catch up. Like I've not seen Tick Tick Boom yet, but I think it will make me spiral. I'm familiar with what it's about. But
it will.
yeah, I'd say that like the timing of this and the ages we've turned around now, it's just, you know, the collision of those things has been very interesting.
Like again, we always say this, and I'm aware that I'm not super old, like, you know, like I'm not having like a midlife crisis or anything, but it's just I do feel like I've reached that age now where I'm starting to feel every year passing a little bit more. And I think especially as a creative person, I always worry that like I'm not doing enough quick enough, which I know is ridiculous. And like me and Lyanna have had conversations constantly about psyching each other up because we know it's ridiculous to feel like that, but you can't help it. And like it's really difficult to find that balance. And the only goal or resolution I set myself in 2021 was to finish like the beta draft of my novella. And I'm really happy that I was able to do it. But now that I've done it, I want to go a bit more back into consuming media a bit more, and mostly getting back into reading, because the last few months of 2021 I got back into reading again and forgot how much I love it.
I think TikTok had an influence on that for you as well. It really did.
Definitely. Like I'm not like a huge aesthetic person. Like I like what I like, but so like when I saw it, I'm not the kind of person that's like, oh, I just want a huge library. Like I do, but I genuinely want a huge library of books that I've read. So like a book won't go on my shelf until I've read it. As an example, I have read, this isn't going to sound like a lot, but it's a lot for someone who hasn't read in a long time. I read 2 books over December, and they're now on my shelf, whereas I started reading something at the beginning of the year that I didn't finish because I wasn't quite in the mindset yet, and it's on top of my bookshelf because it's a constant reminder to myself that like I haven't finished it yet, it hasn't earned its place there.
I find it fascinating that for people whose identity was like consuming like books and films and stuff, we just really fell out of that in an era when you'd think you would do it more. You know what I mean?
It's strange though. I wonder if it's because, especially with like books, as much as it is like consuming, it isn't passively consuming, kind of like you can do with films and shows. Like you do actively have to take a part in it, and that's half of the fun.
And I mean,
but if you're not in the mood,
I mean, I would say that, you know, like certain shows and films aren't passive because, you know, you have to engage with them. But I do completely get what you mean. Like you have to devote a lot more time to reading books for sure. And a lot more focus. But I I had a lot of DNFs this year, do not finishes, for people the uninitiated. I hate that term, but I own, you know, because there's no shame in not finishing a book. Who gives one? But I will say I did do that a lot this year. I really did.
With what in particular? What stands out? I'm curious.
I would say a lot of TikTok books. I really would,
Mm,
because while it was great and helped a lot of people, I personally didn't find that like BookTok books helped me. I
mhm.
loved that like books were becoming, I hate to say a thing, but they were becoming a thing again. You know,
It
you
is
go
weird
in,
to think of like a mass media, like it's like saying films are becoming a thing again as opposed to like
yeah,
a
it
certain
seems
genre. But
weird.
you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
right, it is a weird
Yeah,
thing to
like
say.
vinyl becoming a thing again. But
Mm,
yeah, basically like just being able to go into like Waterstones and see them aware of like the social media presence that certain books have. That definitely helped me, because just seeing people reading more, not, it's not that I thought, oh, that looks cool, or you know, like I had FOMO. It was more like I miss that feeling, you know,
yeah,
of
I
like
get it.
finishing a book. So I won't name books that I put back down,
Mhm.
um, just because I would be there for a while. But we really did think we'd bring books into this episode, because we've not
Yeah.
done that before. We've not really talked about books, but we're both massive readers. So
Yeah, it's really funny you bringing up how like obviously BookTok was a huge influence and
mm.
like you put down a fair few of the books that were recommended on there. But one thing that I started to do, and I think I want to go into 2022 doing it a bit more, is that I don't do this consciously because I don't like to think of myself as a gatekeeper
Mm.
or, you know, really snobby when it comes to things that I like especially with anything artistic. Like I really do think everybody should and can be included in it. But stuff like things that are recommended on Book Talk or just Instagram or TikTok in general, I actually kind of wanted to consume because I kind of wanted to
Mm.
be a part of the fad for a bit to get
Mm.
what that's like because I was
Mm.
never that kid, not intentionally. I was just always behind the times.
You
And
read
I
what you
really,
liked, didn't you? Yeah,
yeah,
you
pretty
always
much.
kind of like rode to the beat of your own drum in school, I'd say.
Yeah, which
Mm.
I enjoy doing and I still do. And I recommend to anybody you should. But I do think there's also a bit of fun in like joining with the crowd for a bit. And I don't even
Mhm.
mean like getting involved. Like I even like kind of being on the outside and seeing what's going on. But there was like so much discourse on Twitter that I didn't even get. And
I
everyone seemed
find
to be
it
having so much fun with it because I wasn't reading or consuming these
you say
things.
the word discourse. I would not use that word, because when I think discourse, I think like just like pedantic, like ridiculous. You know what I mean? Where I'm going with this,
Hmm.
like people dissecting something to the point that it's not even relevant to the original piece of media anymore. But I get what you
Yeah.
mean, like conversations. I think
Hmm.
discourse has just become almost like a dirty word at this point.
See, I don't even think that because I'm not far enough into it yet to feel like that.
But
So
that's
come
kind of a
back for the
good thing.
2022 highlights and I'll be
Mm.
there.
But that's kind of a good thing though, that you can like enjoy social media for sharing
Hmm.
things and not be so deeply ingrained in it. Because a
Hmm.
big thing I did this year was I tried to be less chronically online. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm
Mm.
still on social media loads, but especially in the later half of the year, I really tried to just like live a bit. You know,
Hmm.
like seeing as we've just been in a, you know, like on and off lockdowns for a year and a half, I was like, let's go outside, let's touch grass. Like, no shame to people that still want to be online all the time. Like, if anything, I'm turning back to it because I realized I missed you know, cataloging the things I'd enjoyed. Like, everyone was sharing their letterboxed, you know, year looks at the end of 2021, and I didn't have shit to share because one, I hadn't watched anything, and two, I hadn't logged anything.
Hmm.
So, you know, there was nothing there. But I do think that seeing people say use Goodreads a lot more again
Hmm.
is really fun, because we're going to
Hmm.
see like letterbox behavior with books. I think, I don't know about you, I'm going to start logging things again, even if I'm not painfully online. I
Hmm.
really want to, like, you know, kind of look back on my year, because we struggled writing these lists. Like,
Yeah.
I could not for the life of me remember things I
Hmm.
consumed this year.
You see, this is another reason why though, why I think 2021 went by so fast is because with 2020, I could like kind of go month by month, maybe what mood I was in or
Yeah.
how deep down I'd fallen by what I was consuming. Whereas this year was a lot different. Like I do think it was a mixture of, in all honesty, I was just too busy to kind
Yeah.
of take the time to watch and read and whatever like I did before. But I even realized that last year would have been the year I went back to cinema again,
Mm.
you know, and that whole feeling. And I remember how excited I was. Like I was going to see A Quiet Place too, so it wasn't like something I'd anticipated for that long.
Hmm.
But I just really enjoyed that feeling of being back in the cinema. And like we were having a brief discussion beforehand, and like I'm not as, I would say, dedicated to cinema as Lyanna is, and I do admire her for it, because I don't know if I'm that dedicated to anything. I really need to learn to get better. But I still, yeah, like I miss those little things, like doing stuff like that made the year feel a little bit more normal than 2020 did, even if it didn't last very long.
It's part of what I enjoyed about the later half of the year having more releases is the sense of community, like online and in person. So like you say, returning to the cinema, and we mentioned Squid Game, the sense of community that Squid Game created was amazing, because it felt amazing. It felt like when the World Cup was on, in a weird way, like everyone was talking about the same thing, you know, and not just like, you know, when everyone talked about Stranger Things, like this is good, and that was it. With Squid Game, people were like enjoying different aspects of it and talking about different aspects of it, and I really enjoyed that. And also with You season 3, that like You's become a really great example of like everyone's watching it and you're getting to like talk about it, and I really enjoyed that release as well.
Or like you're wanting to watch it because you don't want it to be spoiled for you and things, oh my God, like that.
The amount of tweets I saw this like September being like, I need to catch up on You because I don't want it spoiled for me.
It's been a while since I've had that kind of feeling of like, oh my God, I don't want to go on social media because I really don't want this thing to get spoiled for me.
Also Succession, the latest season, everyone was going,
I was not a part of that.
No, I know you weren't, but like the fact that everyone's going so mental, it led me to think, does everyone love the show, or are they enjoying being involved in something?
See, this was another one that made me think, I actually think I want to be a bit more part of the crowd of 2022, because I was like, that was one of the examples of something I don't understand any of the stuff that I see, but everybody seems to be having so much fun. And I had the same thoughts, that I was like, is it actually a good show, or are the fans just having a lot of fun anyway? But either way, I'm cool with it.
Part of it as well was that it was it's a weekly release. It's not you know, chucked on streaming. You know, you could actually enjoy it and stew in it every single week and look forward to it and have that like water cooler effect. And I just like, I just love that. I really hope to see more shows do that, maybe like going into the next years.
I'm possibly about to have that with the show, and depending on if I choose to watch it as it comes out, or if I wait for this full season to be out. But last year I did finally catch up on all of Attack on Titan.
Yes.
And I was so excited because I loved it so much when it came out. And then obviously because there was so long between season 1 and season 2, I couldn't find anywhere to watch it. And I will admit, I didn't look very hard. But then last year, I actually like got a subscription to watch anime, and I watched it. I've watched it through twice now. And talking about it, I've just realized I'm sure the part 2 of season 4 today.
Yeah, as of recording, yeah.
And Lyanna, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to get that enjoyment of watching it week by week.
Do it week to week, because I've copped up. I actually fell really behind of Attack on Titan, and I'm catching up right now. I say enjoy it week to week because, like, one, it means it's less likely to get spoiled, and two, when do you get that opportunity these days?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like actually sticking to what I said I was going to do about being part of the crowd. And I think I'm going to do it after we finish recording. Actually, can we wrap this up so I can just go and watch it now before I see anything?
When we say being part of the crowd, it almost has like negative connotations these days. Like everyone's become so like hyper individualistic, and in a way, I hate to say, I'm a bit against that, because don't get me wrong, everyone is an individual. Everyone is unique, all that. But at the end of the day, that isn't all you are. It's okay to enjoy sharing something with a community. And like that created great moments. Like think of like the Game of Thrones finale. Yeah, it was crap. It was. But how good was it sharing that with people? You know, like
so true.
And then those people that I don't watch Game of Thrones, like who cares? Like
literally, it's like
one of the crowd. Like just have fun. And I don't know. I think you should do it. I think you should watch week to week. Get involved.
Do you know what? Yeah, hearing you explain it like that, I think I'm going to, because I think it just gets to a point where we all know too much of something is a bad thing. Like no matter what it is, too much of it. And I think that's when it comes to like being part of the crowd or being an individual. Like I do see myself as quite an isolated person anyway, just because I'm okay with that. But every so often, especially when it comes to things I really enjoy, because like I do see myself as quite a passionate person. So when I like something, I tend to love it. I will fall in love with it. I will consume everything I can about it. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that I'm that kind of person. So yeah, I hope that maybe people start realizing being part of the crowd really isn't a bad thing. And I want to do it, because I think unfortunately I did think a little bit like that a few years ago. Like
I think a lot of us fall prey to that though.
Just because also I saw so many negative sides of it, you know, like when you have like mass fans that do ruin things for people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it seems to be a bit better than what it was. Like people do just seem to be like, oh, I enjoy this thing, I'm only going to really talk to people who also enjoy it, so I can just not have to deal with people who obviously don't have a life and just want to shit on things that other people like.
See, I really feel that way at the moment about Singles Inferno. I sent you a lot of Snapchats about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that ages us to say Snapchat, but yeah, it's like a Netflix Korean dating show, and I've been loving how they've done it. So they put out 2 episodes every week, which is perfect because you've got enough content to really like stew in the arc. Like not enough happens in each episode to do weekly. You know what I mean? So you get 2 hours worth. It's like, I've got a lot to think and talk about here. And it meant it was done in a month. That was definitely one of my 2021 highlights right at the end of the year, like the first few episodes. Like I loved week to week being able to go on like TikTok or Twitter and just see everyone talking about it, and seeing like the contestants' social media presence go crazy was like insane. Like week to week, some of the jokes that have come out of that show, like I genuinely recommend everyone watch that show, not even for the show, but for the amazing commentary and comedy that is coming out.
That's
of
what I mean
viewers.
though. It's like I want that again. I want to have that from a show again.
Exactly. Like I said, Game of Thrones was crap at the end, but you just could not replicate that audience response. You just couldn't.
Yeah, true.
Like I will never forget, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I remember like being diehard, like Arya and Gendry will get together. It's supposed to be like Lyanna and Rhaegar and like blah blah blah. No, Lyanna and Robert, all this jazz. And I just remember when that last season was out, I had so many texts when I woke up one day. I was like, what's going on? Everyone was like, Lyanna, you were so right. Lyanna, you're going to scream. I was like, oh, it was like the best moment of my life. It was so satisfying because I've been waiting for it for so long, because, you know, like, yeah, you wait a long time with seasons still, even if they're dropped in one go, but it's just not the same. And I also think when everyone is watching stuff so quick, it kind of goes out of your brain faster because it comes and goes. You don't spend so long with it.
You don't spend stew with it. Yeah,
exactly. You spend the same amount of time like watching it, but experiencing it is different. Because say Midnight Mass, I've really loved Mike Flanagan's show from 2021, but I would have killed for that to be week to week, because some of the endings and beginnings of episodes, they should have some time between. I think like it's so bizarre to me to see how some shows are being edited specifically with streaming services in mind, and some are being done like they're still on week to week TV, and you can tell which are doing which. Like You is edited for a streaming service for you to just go next episode, and then you get say like the Haunting shows where it feels like you should have time.
Just hearing you like talk about it, it's like these feelings of, like you said, like kind of it being more than a fleeting moment, and it like being this whole thing. It doesn't have to be like a whole thing in mass media. It's just like a select group of people that are able to maybe find each other during this, or you and a load of friends. They seem to be feelings that like really get associated with younger generations. Because even though obviously streaming has changed a lot since we were younger anyway, when we were younger, it really felt like that's what it was, you know, whether you were bullied for it or not. Unfortunately, there was a lot of those kind of feelings around, whereas now, as we're older, they feel like they're gone. And
I would argue that the sense of community around media has changed, because it still exists, but it's definitely evolved and shaped to the point where we don't really recognize it. Because now it's watch this season in a weekend and see all these amazing jokes that last for about a week, and then that's it. Because who's making Squid Game jokes now? No one. Whereas like when we were a bit younger, it was you came into school like every like Thursday, like, did you watch New Girl last night? And you got to chat to people about it. It wasn't, like we say, a fleeting moment. You got longer out of it, so you got more time to discuss it. I don't really like how fast the cycle is these days, but at the end of the day, that's just kind of what some people younger than us are used to now. And it's really interesting when they think that week to week episodes are like, you know, this like
torture.
No, not torture. Like they think it's a marketing thing, don't they? And it's like, no, that's just what TV was. Like,
True,
it's
true.
insane to me.
Although
But
in
really
this day
interesting.
and age, which is a phrase I never thought I would use at 25, but in this day and age, I actually would argue to an
Oh, it
extent
is.
it is marketing,
Yes.
because it's like you just said. I think it's because some shows are made for it and others aren't, which is why it works and sometimes it doesn't. But because now you do have basically two different ways you can present a show, it really does change kind of how it goes. And it's really interesting now that we're talking about this, because before we started recording, we were just having a brief discussion about, some little white noise things and how we kind of want to go for the year. And I think this is why we really enjoy releasing episodes how we do, like at the end of the month, because, we like to release other things that are like a bit more in the moment, because sometimes that is fun. Things will be fleeting. People won't linger on them for a while. So you can take up those things, run with it for a weekend or whatever, and then it will probably just disappear. But then there's other stuff that like really does deserve to be sat with a bit bigger. And that's why, we wanted to do like a nice started to do a nice mixture on White Noise of these two kinds of media, because we don't just want to completely take away from how we like to consume media, but just the whole point of White Noise in the first place as well is that we want to have this like big discussion that doesn't always have to be like analytical or philosophical or anything. It can literally just be us goofing around, speaking nonsense, but like just taking time, like a nice chunk of time to really just sit with something and be like, that was fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, we do some stuff like very quickly after release, but I say for the most part, we leave it a little while. Don't get me wrong, like it's really fun to like do something immediate, like immediate thoughts, but I don't know, I guess I just kind of like to wait a little bit. I would have loved to do, say, like a Dune episode for when it came out, but now that more time's passed and I've gotten to see like more people's reactions, and that, now people have gone back and read the book and that's part of the conversation, like I'm enjoying it way more, like thinking about it and talking about it with people than I did when the film came out.
Like I actually remember when you brought up that we were toying with the idea of either both of us or just yourself, like releasing like a quick episode thing on Dune,
when we
which
had that like brief idea of me just sitting here for like half an hour
getting pissed, just ranting. Which, to be fair, I do think those things are fun, because that's like that initial after cinema feeling, which is also brilliant. But I think, like you said, sometimes then when you sit with things for a bit longer and like you're not even necessarily thinking about them a lot, but you like think to yourself, your mood changes about it. So it's not that initial
it's
quick
almost like
reaction.
you finalize your stance and your thoughts, and
so sometimes stuff is good for it to be like quick fire reaction, memes, all that, and they can be some of the funniest things, especially because a lot of the time it's messy. Like I love this era of like messy memes and content. I think it's brilliant, and like I think it's worked in our favor quite a bit, because a lot of White Noise has been messy, both intentionally and unintentionally. But yeah, I hope maybe we start to see that bit more of a split again. Not like, an us against them kind of situation, but like some content should be created for the sake of a fun weekend, and then others I think should be sat on a bit more, and like you said, be not necessarily defining of a year, but when you think of that year you think, oh yeah, that was, like you said, the Squid Game year, or whatever it was.
And don't get me wrong, I think people are going to look back on Squid Game, but I think if it was released like 2 episodes a week or like one each week, it'd be more monumental. But then what do I know? Because people will still look back on Stranger Things and are like, yeah, and that was all dropped in one day. So what do I know?
Yeah.
You can, I think it really depends on the piece of media, like you said. Some need longer, some are fine to be quick. And it really is up to like the creators, how they put it out. But then I also think sometimes you should use your common sense. Say, for example, I've been watching Midnight Mass slowly because I think after about 2 episodes, I was like, okay, this is not something I want to sit and watch in one go. Like that is not how I'm going to get the most out of it. I think maybe everyone needs to get out the mentality of just because it's there, I need to watch it all at once. Like we've been so conditioned to just sit in a weekend, like you say, and blast for it because everyone else is doing it. And I will say part of the problem with that is you almost feel you have to, like it's an obligation because otherwise it'll be spoiled. Because we've gotten used to everything coming out in one day, people race to the finish line and immediately are posting it all over the internet. And like, don't get me wrong, people are allowed to post what they want, and like no one has to put spoiler warnings everywhere, but like you're a bit of a dick if you're posting about a season finale the day it came out. But this is part of why, like, I don't necessarily think we need to lean away from, like, you know, just consuming everything on streaming and stuff, but I think maybe everyone needs to think about how they consume it more, and that's definitely something I did in 2021 for sure, and I will do in 2022.
I feel like this is why a part of me, as much as like I'd like to make a bit more of a conscious effort to get involved with like that side of things a bit more, I'm also scared because, like you said, this is where spoilers come into it, because I've enjoyed loads of shows quite a few years after they've come out. Like one of the things I started watching in 2021 was The Handmaid's Tale, and because I was watching it with my girlfriend and like we were both working, we couldn't just watch it all in one go. And also she's actually not the kind of person that usually sits there and just watches stuff all at once. She might watch like 1 or 2 episodes consecutively, but that's it. So like we did consume it on more of, not quite a weekly basis, but close. So you kind of got that feeling of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because, you know, you didn't watch the next one straight away. But there was no spoilers because the seasons I was watching had been out for a while. So it's like that weird risk that you take by watching stuff as and when it happens. Or just like not being involved at all, so like stuff doesn't even come up, or if it does come up you don't understand it and then you forget it by the time you actually come around and watch it.
I think it's great that like people are making up their own minds, like starting to, about how they're going to watch things. And I think that was really prominent in 2021 when it came to you know, cinemas versus streaming services. Say look at Dune, how it came out on streaming and, you know, no, on demand and in cinemas at the same time. Black Widow was 2021, wasn't it? That did the same.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2021. They're all blending into one for me, like all these like mixed film releases. But that was really interesting, I'll say, to see. I don't know, just to see like people deciding whether to go to the cinema or to watch it at home. Like it was fascinating.
I liked it though, because it just felt like there was a lot more choice, because obviously not everybody enjoys the cinema, and especially at the moment, even say someone such as myself who I love the cinema, however I do still have quite panicky moments of like worry about, you know, going out and being in crowded spaces and stuff like that. It's a hard thing to shake after these past 2 years. So sometimes I'll really want to watch something, but I'm not quite ready to put myself in the space of being in a cinema. So it's nice to have the option to watch it. I really wish the option wasn't to either pay like 7-8 quid for a cinema ticket and then £20 to, I get it, own it, but maybe we can figure that out in 2022.
maybe that'll become like a more concrete thing, because it felt very like last minute, didn't it?
It did.
As an option for a lot of these films. Maybe it'll become like a bit more tweaked and perfected going into it. Like, I wonder if these studios will think, oh fuck, that actually worked out well for us, or if it didn't, you know, that would be cool.
It's like, once, I'm pretty sure, again I was about to say once upon a time, then I'm using so many phrases I really don't feel like I should be at this age, but the whole idea of something being released in the cinema and like simultaneously on a streaming service or like on like Sky Movies or something at the same time was very rare, and it was like a huge thing when it happened, whereas now it's almost kind of expected. The other night, because I just keep seeing it all over social media, me and my girlfriend wanted to watch Encanto, and I was like, oh, I really don't want to go to the cinema, and she was like, oh, is it not on Disney Plus? And I was like, oh yeah, probably for like 20 quid or something. She was like, no, I'm sure you can watch it, and we could just watch it. But again, I was like, it was just mad to think that I just thought it was in the cinema. I just didn't even consider that it could have been somewhere else to watch it.
And have you seen the new Pixar film, Turning Red? That's going to be a Disney Plus release, not in cinemas, just Disney Plus.
Well,
like,
some again,
Pixar film, that's mental.
Well, this is another thing that like I feel like we would have gone this way anyway, but the pandemic has definitely sped things up.
Yes,
but like streaming specific releases kind of scare me a bit.
Yes.
Because having both released is cool, it's an option. But like you said, especially for a Pixar film.
Yeah, I know, I was mind blown, because surely that's one of the films that will bring people to the cinema.
I wonder if this is, like you just said though, about production, like trying to figure out what works for them. I wonder if this is their test.
And the case is escalating again, like but you know, it just kind of stopped me in my tracks that a Pixar film was doing that. And I work at a cinema, So everyone in the group chat, like all the stuff, like holy crap, all of us were a bit like surprised. But certain films, like even like Dune, like that was really surprising to be on both, because I was like, this huge scale blockbuster, and they were putting it on streaming. Like, don't get me wrong, like it was like really surprising when Black Widow did it, but I could almost understand it a bit more with Marvel, because they're big scale films, but they weren't necessarily just designed for the cinema. Whereas the way Dune was talked about by its director, by Denis Villeneuve, like he was like, watch it in the cinema. And then it went to, to streaming, and he was fuming, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen Dune. I don't know if I will. Maybe it will come across my path at some point. But I do remember seeing everybody talking about like how it was going to be watched. And it was another thing that I thought was so interesting.
Yes.
We were talking about, again, before we started recording, about like there's such, I hate to use this word, but like snobbery around how people choose to consume something, like whether it's music or film or TV. It's like, oh, if you watch it on your phone, then do you know what this started, say, even when we were kids, when like Kindles and stuff first started coming out, and like ebooks were becoming a thing, and then everybody was like, ooh, you read ebooks, why don't you read like this, and I can't lie, I was one of those kids for a while, because I saw myself like reading was my personality. I was that person.
And I also just to like quickly interject, like usually when someone loves reading, like this isn't a rule, but it's quite common. Usually when someone loves reading, they don't just love reading, they love books, like physical books. It's a collective thing. So yeah, I get what you mean.
Definitely. So I got it. And to an extent, I still feel a bit the same, because similar to when films are released on streaming services or the cinema, with books, I'm kind of like, oh, do I want to buy the physical book or go a little bit cheaper with the ebook? Like, how much am I going to like it?
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, oh, well, I read the ebook, then if I really like it, I get a physical copy. And it's like, that must be great that you don't have to worry so much about spending to buy something twice.
Yes.
And I wish I could do that. And if I lived in an ideal world, that is probably what I would do. Sometimes you just know, like, you want a physical copy of this thing. But yeah, so that all started back then, when people would judge you if you read ebooks. And now it's kind of started to move again with like, oh my God, you watch this film on your phone? And it's like, yes, because maybe someone doesn't have a TV, or even crazier, maybe they just prefer to consume it on their phone. It's just something they're used to.
I'm not being funny. Like, I know people, when they say phone, they're being extreme. They're going from opposite ends of the spectrum, like huge IMAX and a phone. But at the end of the day, it's shades of grey. If someone is passionate about something and wants to consume it, why should the way they consume it change that? Like, I mean, it'd be one thing if it was like, they watched it on like potato quality, filmed in the cinema version. But, like everyone's got to consume somehow. And it like really like ignores people's background and levels of privilege. And I think that definitely became apparent this year with the whole streaming service debate, didn't it? But that's mad to me, because at the end of the day, as we've also seen this year, if it wasn't for some of these streaming services, a lot of filmmakers would not be in business anymore. So like, just deal with it. Like, it's the way it is now.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, because I've always said that when you're creating any kind of art, once you've put it out into the world, you can't always tell people how to consume it. It is their choice. It's kind of this really weird relationship that artists have with their fans and stuff like that. At the end of the day, you want them to enjoy it, and if they enjoy it doing it their way, then why can't they? But I know I also know how protective people are over their work. I mean, I know this is a completely different conversation, and we'll get into it a bit more at a later date. But it's like the whole debate around fan fiction as well.
I was just about to say, this is screaming and rice.
Yeah, like it's like artistic liberty. It's like, look, I get it. I get being protective over your art. And I also do get that sometimes, like you said, if either you have bad fan fiction or someone's watching a terrible quality and then so they can't really enjoy it. That kind of argument I get. But just for the sake of like, this has to be done this particular way. It's like, it's not like a ritual. And I think that's when people get maybe a bit too protective over stuff. Like, there's a difference between, I think, being passionate and being protective.
Yes,
is the only way I could think to describe it.
And I think like not even just like things you create or how you consume something, but just like how you interpret something. Because and this is to like edge a bit back to book talk again. I loved some like dark academia stuff this year. And don't get me wrong, like I love the whole like idea of aesthetics, but I don't understand boxing yourself into those things, because it blew my mind when I saw this TikTok that was like about If We Were Villains and The Secret History, and talking about superiority complex when you go around in public reading them. And I was like, but those books are critiquing that thinking. They're
Yeah.
against, you know, glorifying academia. And like the fucking debate in the comments was a thing of beauty. Like I love a bit of drama in a comment section, so I was living, but I just couldn't believe that it became that much of a debate. Like if and it's amazing to me that like social media has done that, particularly this year with book talk. Like the way that people are debating how to read a book, what a book's about. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I love a conversation, but they're going nuts at each other. And it feels like, I don't know about you, I feel like it's watching Tumblr 2.0. I know you weren't on Tumblr, but you must know
I
what
get
people
the
mean by
concept.
that.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I kind of love it though, because I'm like enjoying watching people literally go through the same motions.
It's almost like, you know, there's just like cycles we go through in history.
Yeah.
Like you could probably go back way back and compare that to so many things. Like it's just going to keep happening.
Yes, and this cinema debate, oh my god, it's happened before, like 2 or 3 times. Like films become diluted and overly similar, and there's monopolies, and then younger people break through and change it. I mean, yes, it's a bit intimidating going up against Disney, but you know, like hopefully it happens.
Yeah.
Just being positive in that way. It's like, I don't know if you've noticed how many like new voices are coming out in books and publishing at the minute. Like it's so satisfying. Like when you walk into a Waterstones these days, I've realized I'm seeing a lot more new books being put up on the shelves rather than just like the same old, you know, classics or like top 20 authors. You'd go in and you'd see all the same crime novelists when you walked into a Waterstones. And now there's like books like I just read Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, and that was incredible. Read If We Were Villains by ML Rio, and that's not particularly new, but it's definitely an example of like slightly newer books like getting really pushed this last year. I've been loving it, really loving it.
It just really proves this whole idea of like re-immersion, that like everything makes a comeback, you know, because at one point, like, it's sad to talk about, but like the death of cinema, it is happening. I hope it doesn't completely happen, but it is happening. But then we have to remember, once upon a time people were talking about the death of the written word, and like, yes, it has become more digitalized as we've moved forward, but the concept of it's still the same. People are still creating these worlds using their words, and people are fucking loving it.
They're laughing it up now.
So maybe we're seeing the death of cinema as we know it.
Yes,
is the most optimistic I think I can be.
No, I have to completely agree. Like people need to stop using superlatives, because it's happened before. And at the end of the day, yes, you can do your best to like reject it, but if something's happening on a mass scale, unless you can change an entire audience across the world's perspective and behavior, then nothing's happening. You're just going to kind of have to roll with it. It is a bit sad, but what are you going to do? Like, I mean, it was sad to see bookshops starting to go quieter, but they're actually picking up again. Physical CD sales just reported they had their first year of slight growth, which mad to me, because I've literally gotten rid of all my CDs. So big regret. But yeah, like things change, things come and go. Like that's just how it is. I mean, the trend cycle's picking up faster. So if anything, we'll just see this happen more times, you know? Something I wanted to add was, I've been a massive one for going back and cycling on things recently. Like I watched Evangelion like the beginning of last year, changed my life, by the way. I'd never actually watched it all the way through before. It was amazing. And I'm already like, maybe I'll watch it again, maybe I'll see it differently, you know? Like I think things aren't concrete, especially with the media you consume. Like I can see us doing this episode like again and again every year, and like the same things maybe creeping up like every 2 or 3 years. But maybe next year I'll have like massively obsessed over New Girl again, or maybe I'll have reread Dune. We'll see.
we will just have to see. But you know, again, just kind of circling back around to the beginning, this is why we just couldn't quite let this episode go, because I just think they're so interesting. Like I love doing all of our episodes, obviously, but these ones in particular, you know, like how you were just talking about, you want to try logging stuff a bit more in 2022. This is kind of what this is for me.
Yeah, it's
like,
an archive.
You know, like you can go back and listen, which I highly recommend you do go back and listen to our 2020 highlights. but like, you know, I want to hope we can put these out each year to really see the change, and but not just the bad, you know, like we were just saying how like, yeah, you know, you can't ignore the death of cinema, but it's just, hopefully it's just the death of this era.
Yeah.
You know, the same with a lot of things, and maybe we'll come back in 2022 or a couple of years after, and we'll be talking, you know, looking back on this episode like, wow, how did we not know? How did we not see this was coming, in a good way, hopefully, not in the way we've experienced.
We're going to be
so
those
far.
people that, like you say, cried of the death of the written word, or cried this the death of music and things like that. Like things just adapt and they evolve, and I'm looking forward to it this coming year, 2022. There's some good stuff coming out, so I'm excited to see what next year's episode is going to be like.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm also excited, like we've planned ahead a bit, and hopefully hopefully it'll be good, but like yeah, I'm excited for the stuff we've got coming up. I think 2022 I just really hope it reflects in everything and we see a good change.
Yes, in everything.
In everything. So yeah, I think we're starting to wind down a bit here, but I always want to know, but I'd be really curious to hear kind of like, you know, other people's highlights of 2022, because this is just us, like we are like a small section of this, and like everybody's different, everybody experienced the year differently, you know, especially being in different countries as well, like you know, some people weren't able to go back to the cinema as quickly, or others were able to go back quicker, or you know, different releases got released at different times, and yeah, it'd be just cool to hear anybody who wanted to have their voices heard.
And just the things you really enjoyed. I mean, we didn't actually necessarily talk that much about concrete pieces of media. This was more a conversation about, you know, types of media in general in this landscape. But yeah, we want to hear the actual, you know, the things you liked as well. So your favorite book, maybe tell us something to read. I mean, I want to read more this year.
Yeah, me too, definitely.
For sure.
And I want to read more. I want to jump on the bandwagon more. So just flood all of our social media and the comments of the YouTube video with just suggestions. Like we want to hear them.
And if anything, we kind of live on Twitter these days, so
yeah,
definitely chuck it over.
Yeah, just throw it all our way.
But yeah, I think that's kind of it for today. I really enjoyed this conversation, honestly, talking about, you know, a big overarching topic. It's something we've definitely done more this year, but we're probably gonna in the future lean a bit more into like specific pieces of media again.
Yeah, all right, well, thank you for listening and waiting patiently for our 2021 highlights, and yeah, you'll be hearing from us again very soon. Bye.